The morning I turned 63, I came home from my early walk to find a folded piece of paper on the kitchen island. My wife's handwriting. I recognized it before I even touched it. The slight leftward lean, the looping G's, the way she pressed too hard on the pen like the words needed anchoring. We're heading to Dennis's for Thanksgiving. Ashley thinks it would be good for the family. The house has felt crowded lately, and honestly, it might be time you started thinking about finding somewhere that suits you better. We'll talk when things settle. I read it twice. Then I set it back down and made coffee. There was turkey in the refrigerator. I had bought it 4 days ago. A 19-pound bird because my wife had said she wanted the real thing this year. I stood there with the coffee warming my hands, looking at the refrigerator door, thinking about the turkey behind it. I didn't feel angry. That caught me off guard. I felt the way you feel when you've been expecting a storm so long that when it finally arrives, you almost thank it for its honesty. My wife and I married 7 years ago. I was 56. She was 49. We met through mutual friends at a dinner party in Scottsdale. The kind of evening where people talk too loudly and mean too little. She laughed at something I said about the housing market, and I thought, here is a woman who pays attention. I wasn't wrong about that. She paid attention to a great many things. I simply didn't understand yet which things those were. Her daughter Ashley was 19 when we married. She lived with her father Dennis in Phoenix at the time, which I was told was temporary. Dennis was between things, as my wife described it, which I later understood meant between efforts rather than between opportunities. Ashley came to visit on weekends. She called me Robert from the beginning, which I didn't mind. I wasn't trying to replace anything. I was just there trying to be useful, the way I had been useful my whole adult life. I was a civil engineer for 31 years. I retired at 61 with a pension, a modest investment portfolio, and a habit of solving problems before they announced themselves. My wife called this my greatest quality. She said it with warmth in those first years, the way people describe a trait they plan to depend on. Ashley moved back in 2 years after the wedding. She was 21 and had left a graphic design program in Tempe after 1 semester, which she described as misaligned with her creative vision. My wife supported this completely. I didn't argue. I asked only whether Ashley had a plan. My wife told me not to make her feel small. I said I wasn't, that I was asking a genuine question. My wife said it didn't matter how I meant it, only how it landed. Ashley had a boyfriend named Kyle, 24, who worked intermittently in the trades and more consistently on his opinions. He was around the house often enough that I eventually stopped noticing his truck in the driveway the way you stop noticing a piece of furniture. He ate dinners he didn't contribute to, used my Wi-Fi to stream things loudly, and referred to me as the landlord once, under his breath, but not far enough under. My wife said he was joking. I said some jokes are just statements wearing a costume. Over time, the financial architecture of the household arranged itself around me the way these things do. Quietly, incrementally, with each step made to seem reasonable in isolation. The mortgage was in my name because my credit score was better, and the rate dropped 2 full points when I refinanced. The second car, which Ashley drove, was co-signed by me because she had no credit history. The studio space she leased downtown for her art, a real expense, nearly $800 a month, went on my card because the landlord required a guarantor with verifiable income. The family cell plan, the streaming subscriptions, the grocery deliveries, the occasional cash transfers that my wife called temporary, all carried my name or my account number or my signature. I told myself this was investment. I told myself this was what it meant to build a life with someone. Dennis appeared again about 18 months ago. He had moved back to the area, found a woman with a house in Chandler, and apparently rediscovered the appeal of being a father now that it required no infrastructure. Ashley started spending weekends there. My wife visited twice, then 3 times, saying she wanted to support Ashley's reconnection with her father. I nodded. I said, of course. I meant it. I do believe in second chances. What I didn't understand yet was that my wife had begun narrating a different version of her life to herself, one in which Dennis's return was not a disruption, but a correction. Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. My wife had promised this. She said she wanted to do it properly. Real cooking, no shortcuts, The kind of meal that sits with you. I had taken it seriously. I bought the turkey. I ordered a specific pie from a bakery in Central Scottsdale. I asked my daughter from my first marriage, who lives in Flagstaff, to make the drive down. She had rearranged her plans for it. And then there was the note on the kitchen island. I finished my coffee, I called my daughter and told her the plans had changed. I apologized for the inconvenience. She asked if I was all right. I said I was fine, that I was thinking through some things, and that I would call her in a few days. She paused long enough to let me know she understood more than I'd said. She told me she loved me and that I should let her know if I needed anything. I told her I would. I meant it. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with a legal pad and did something I should have done a year earlier. I wrote out every financial obligation I was carrying that did not belong to me. The mortgage, my name only. My wife had been on the original application but was removed during the refinance when it approved the terms. I had mentioned adding her back. She had said later, "Let's not complicate it. The co-signed car, my credit, Ashley's vehicle." Ashley had made 11 payments in 3 years. I had covered the rest. The studio lease, my guarantor's signature, 12 months remaining on the current term. The family cell plan, 4 lines my account. The shared credit card, my primary, my wife as authorized user. Ashley as a secondary authorized user, added 6 months ago at my wife's request for emergencies. Ashley's renter's insurance, small but mine. I looked at the list for a long time. I wasn't tallying grievances. I was looking at a structure, an engineer's habit. I wanted to see the load-bearing walls before I touched anything. I called my attorney. He had handled my first divorce and my estate planning, and had a voice like a man who had heard every version of every story and maintained his composure through all of them. I told him what I was looking at. He listened. He asked 2 clarifying questions. He said, "Give me until Monday and I'll have a framework for you." I said, "I appreciate it." He said, "You're not the first person to call from a kitchen table on a holiday." I did not cancel anything that afternoon. I did not change any passwords or send any messages. I packed a bag, 3 days of clothes, my blood pressure medication, the book I'd been reading, the photograph of my daughter at her college graduation that I kept on the nightstand. I checked into a hotel near the airport, neutral, clean, the kind of place that doesn't ask questions and keeps the coffee hot. The room smelled like laundered linen and recycled air. I set my bag on the luggage rack and sat in the chair by the window and looked at the parking structure across the street for a long time. I wasn't empty. I was organizing. There's a particular quality of thought that becomes available to you when no one needs anything from you, when no one is about to walk through a door, when no phone is about to rock through a door, when no phone is about to ring with a request dressed as a question. It's the kind of thinking I used to do at the drafting table before everything moved to screens. Precise, unhurried, load by load. I ordered food from a place nearby. I ate slowly. I slept better than I had in months. In the morning, I called my financial advisor and asked him to review the beneficiary designations on my retirement accounts and the life insurance policy. He told me the wife was listed as primary. I told him we'd be making changes. He said he'd send the paperwork. I also called my accountant and asked her to pull together a summary of the last 3 years of household expenditures by category. She said she'd have it by the end of the week. The hotel had a small gym. I used it. I ate breakfast at a diner across the street where the waitress called everyone hon and refilled without being asked. I left a good tip. I watched the parking lot. I thought about the studio lease and the co-signed car and the credit card, and I thought about Ashley at Dennis's house and Chandler eating turkey that someone else had made, not thinking about any of it. The first call came Thanksgiving afternoon. My wife's name on the screen. I let it ring. I was not hiding. I was not ready. She called again an hour later. I let that one ring too. Ashley called at 6:30 in the evening. I noticed this. The timing. Not midday, not morning. Evening, when presumably the warmth of the holiday had worn off and the phone plan had shown an alert, or the credit card had sent a notification, or something else. Administrative had surfaced and required attention. I let it ring. I spent that night thinking about the word family, how my wife had used it in the note. Ashley thinks it would be good for the family. A family that went to Dennis's for Thanksgiving without mentioning it until a note on an island. A family that had spent the last 3 years allowing me to be essential and invisible simultaneously. I thought about how efficiency and invisibility can feel the same from the outside until the moment they stop being the same. My wife left a voicemail at 8:15. She sounded casual in the careful way people sound when they have rehearsed being casual. "Robert, I hope you're doing all right. We had a nice afternoon over here. I wanted to check in. Give me a call when you get a chance. We can talk about the Thanksgiving stuff. I know it didn't work out, but I think it was important for Ashley. Call me." I listened to it once. I noticed she said the Thanksgiving stuff, as though the note were a scheduling conflict rather than a door swinging shut. I noticed she said, "I think it was important for Ashley," but not anything about whether it was important to me or to my daughter who had driven down from Flagstaff and turned around. I noticed she did not say, "I'm sorry." I called her back on Saturday morning. 2 days after the note, I had decided this because I wanted to be settled, not strategic. There is a difference, and I believe in it. She answered on the second ring. She said my name twice. Robert, Robert, the way people say a name when they're relieved and also nervous. "I'm at a hotel," I said. "I've been here since Thanksgiving morning." She went quiet, the small quiet before recalibration. "You left?" "I left when you did," I said. "I just left in a different direction." "Robert, I didn't mean for you to—" That note was— I was going to explain. "I understood the note," I said. I kept my voice level. It wasn't difficult. I had been keeping my voice level in that house for years. "I'd like to talk about some changes I'm making." She shifted into the voice she used when she thought something could be managed. "Of course, we can talk about whatever you need. I agree things have been tense. I think we both need— I'm removing myself as co-signer on the car," I said. A pause. "What?" "The car Ashley drives." I co-signed. "I'm beginning the process to have my name removed, which will require refinancing in her name or a co-signer she provides. I've sent her a certified letter with 30 days' notice." "You can't just—" "Robert, her credit isn't—" "I know," I said. "That's a conversation for the two of you." "In the studio?" She had figured out what I was doing. Her voice had dropped a register. "The lease has 11 months remaining. I'll honor the term because I signed it, and I keep my word. When it expires, I won't be renewing. She'll need to qualify on her own or find a different space." "You're punishing her because you're angry at me." I let that sit for a moment. "I'm returning responsibilities to the people who own them," I said. "That's not punishment. It's accuracy." "Ashley doesn't—" She stopped herself. Then tried again, softer. "She depends on those things. She's still getting established." "She's 26, I said. "And she has a father now." "Dennis is back." "That's good. Let him help get her established." The silence this time was longer. "What about us?" she said finally. "I'm meeting with my attorney next week," I said. "I think you should meet with yours." Her voice cracked in a way I recognized. Not grief, adjustment, the sound of a load-bearing wall getting a new address. "You're serious." "I've been serious for a long time," I said. "This is the first time I'm saying it out loud." She tried a few more things after that. She said she hadn't meant to make me feel excluded. I said exclusion was the right word and that it had been consistent. She said Ashley was going through a hard time. I said Ashley had been going through a hard time for 4 years, and that at some point a hard time becomes a lifestyle if no one requires anything different. She said I sounded cold. I said I felt clear. And I learned that people sometimes call that cold when it inconveniences them. She said Kyle had asked about the Wi-Fi password because apparently she had told Ashley he could stay over for the holiday weekend. I said the Wi-Fi account would be changing. She made a sound I won't describe. I told her I wished her well and that I would be in touch through my attorney. I ended the call. My hands didn't shake. I noticed this. There had been moments in that marriage where I braced myself for the shake that didn't come, where I sat with a stillness that surprised me. I understood now that it wasn't numbness. It was something older and quieter than that. It was the particular calm of a person who has finally stopped pretending the situation is temporary. I went to the gym again. I ate a good lunch. I called my daughter. She answered on the first ring. She said, "I've been waiting." I said, "I know." She asked how I was. I said I was better than I'd been in longer than I could accurately measure. She cried a little, the kind that comes from relief rather than sadness. She said, "I never understood why you stayed so quiet about all of it." I told her I had confused loyalty with silence for a long time and that I was working on the difference. She said she wanted to come down. I said, "Not yet. Give me a week." She said, "Call me every day." I said I would. I meant it. I did call her every day. I said I would. I meant it. I did call her every day. Ashley called on Sunday evening. I answered because I had decided to answer. I thought she deserved that much. Her voice was tight, the particular tightness of someone who has rehearsed anger and found it unwieldy once the conversation actually started. "Robert." Just the name, like a door opening. "Ashley," I said. "Mom says you're leaving. That's accurate. A breath. You can't take your name off the car." "I can't qualify for a loan on my own." "I know," I said. "You have some time to figure it out." "That's not fair. I didn't do anything." I thought about that for a moment, the genuine sincerity of it. She believed it. That was the most honest thing about the whole situation. "You didn't have to do anything," I said gently. "That was always the arrangement. But I'm not able to keep the arrangement." "Why not? What changed?" "I came home to a note," I said. "Not a conversation." "A note? Mom wrote that, not me." "I know," I said, "but you were in the car when she drove to Chandler, and you've been in the house for 4 years, and not once did you ask what any of it cost." I paused. "I'm not angry about that. I want you to understand that. I'm just not in a position to keep funding things I was never thanked for." I said thank you. Her voice had gone young, the way voices go when certainty starts to slip. "You said thank you for specific things sometimes," I said. "Birthday dinners, that kind of thing. But not for the larger arrangement. Not for the studio. Not for the car payments. Not for the years of it." She was quiet for long enough that I thought she might have set the phone down. Then she said quietly, "I didn't think I had to." "I know," I said. That was the problem. I heard something shift in her then. Not an apology, not yet, but something that preceded one. Like a hinge finding oil. I didn't press it. I told her I hoped she'd be all right. I told her the 30-day notice on the car gave her time, and that if she needed a referral to a credit union that worked with thin credit files, I could send her a name. She said nothing for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." Not gratitude, not warmth, but something measured. I took it. I did send her the name. I believe in extending the hand even when you're stepping back. There is a difference between withdrawing help and abandoning someone, and I was committed to the first and incapable of the second. Dennis called on Monday. I'd been expecting this. A number I didn't recognize, Phoenix area code. He used Mike, which isn't my name, never was, and immediately corrected himself to Robert when I pointed it out. He had the voice of a man who had charmed his way through most difficulties, and was freshly surprised when charm met an edge. He said he wanted to make sure everyone could get to a good place. He said he was back in Ashley's life now and wanted to support her. He said he understood I had concerns, but that maybe we could all sit down and figure out a path forward. I said I thought that was a reasonable idea, and that his first step toward supporting Ashley was getting himself added to that car loan. He said that was a complicated situation, that his finances were in a particular kind of flux right now. I said I understood flux. I said Ashley had 30 days. I said I was glad he was back in her life and that I genuinely meant that. Because she had grown up with an absent father, and that absence had cost her something. I said it was good that he wanted to help. I said now was an excellent time to start. He was quiet for a long time after that. Then he said, "Well, we'll see what we can work out." I said good luck and ended the call. My attorney had the documents ready by midweek. We spent an hour going through them. The separation of assets, the financial disclosures, the timeline. He was precise and unhurried, the kind of professional who makes difficulty feel manageable by treating it as ordinary. He told me I had been patient to a fault and that courts would likely see this arrangement clearly. I told him I wasn't interested in a fight. I was interested in a fair exit. He said those weren't mutually exclusive. I said I know, but the exit is the priority. I moved into a furnished apartment at the end of the month. Second floor, good light, a small balcony facing west. I could see the mountains from it in the morning, before the haze settled in. The space had no history in it, no arguments baked into the walls, no sighing at the recycling, no notes on islands. I unpacked slowly, deliberately, choosing what came with me. My books, my drafting tools, which I kept even retired because they grounded me. The photograph of my daughter, the watch my father had given me the day I earned my engineering license. I hung it on a hook by the door. My wife called twice that first week. I let both go to voicemail, not to punish her. I simply had nothing left to negotiate. My attorney was handling the logistics, and the rest, the why and the how it came to this. Those were conversations I had already had with myself over years of small surrenders. I didn't need to have them again out loud with someone who had turned them into bargaining. She left one message that I listened to twice. Her voice was different. Not the managed voice or the injured voice or the convincing voice. Something quieter. She said, "I don't think I understood what I had until I didn't have it anymore. I'm not saying that to get you back. I'm saying it because I think I owe you the honesty." A pause. "I hope you're well, Robert." I mean that. I believed her. I also knew it had arrived too late to mean what it would have meant 3 years ago, said in the kitchen over dinner. Before the note, before the accumulated weight of being useful without being seen. Some things become true only after they're no longer useful. I didn't hold that against her. I simply noted it, the way an engineer notes a failure point in the structure that's already been decommissioned. I called my daughter that night and told her I had found the apartment, that it had good light, that I could see the mountains. She said she was coming down next weekend. I said all right. She said she'd bring her mother's chili recipe. I said I'd make sure there was a decent pot. We talked for an hour about things that had nothing to do with any of this. Her job, a trip she was planning, a book she'd read. Easy things, things that had always been easy between us and had been available to me all along, if I had simply made more room for them. There is a version of this story that is about betrayal. I've thought about that version. It would be simpler, more satisfying in a way, to tell it that way. The ungrateful wife, the entitled stepdaughter, the vanishing ex-husband who floated back in like weather. There's truth in each of those pieces, but that version leaves out the part I am most accountable for, which is this. I kept the arrangement running because it felt like purpose, and I confused purpose with belonging for a very long time. That is not a small mistake. It is the kind of mistake that can cost you a decade if you're not paying attention. My father was a man who fixed things. He fixed the neighbors' things too, without asking for anything back, because he believed that usefulness was its own dignity. He was right about that. What he didn't account for, what I didn't understand until much later, is that dignity requires acknowledgement to remain whole. Usefulness without recognition, repeated long enough, doesn't stay dignified. It becomes invisible. And invisible is not a life. I am 63 years old. I have a pension and a portfolio and a second-floor apartment with good light and a view of the mountains. I have a daughter who drives 4 hours to bring me chili. I have an attorney who calls me by my name without being reminded. I have mornings that belong entirely to me. Coffee at my own pace, no notes on any surface requiring my departure. The studio lease has 10 months left. I will honor it because I said I would. The car situation resolved itself. Dennis, it turned out, had more flexibility in his finances than he'd let on when a real consequence was on the table. Ashley made the first payment herself. I know this because the lender sent a confirmation. I didn't congratulate her. I didn't need to. That isn't the point. The point is simpler than the story around it. The point is that there is a difference between choosing to give and being expected to give, and the difference matters more than the amount. I gave freely for years. I would do it again if the giving had been received as giving rather than assumed as infrastructure. That distinction is not bitterness. It is, I think, the clearest thing I know. I took a drive last Sunday, early before the heat built up. I went out toward the desert. past the developments and the gas stations and the spreading grid of the city, out to where the land gets its own opinions back. I parked at a trailhead I hadn't visited in years and walked for 2 hours without checking my phone. The sky was doing what desert skies do in the early morning, turning colors that don't have agreed-upon names. I thought about the last 7 years. I thought about what I had carried and what I had chosen not to put down and what it cost me to finally choose differently. I didn't feel victorious out there. I want to be honest about that. Victory implies a competition, and I was never competing. I felt mostly accurate. Like a measurement taken carefully after years of rounding up. Like a structure assessed honestly after years of deferred maintenance. I felt, most specifically, like a man who had finally given himself the same quality of attention he had given everyone else. That is not a small thing. It took me 63 years to understand it. If you stayed with me this long, you probably know why. You've probably felt it yourself. That particular exhaustion of being the person who holds things together for people who never wonder what it costs. I'm not asking for anything from you, but I'd like to know where you're watching from. Leave a comment below. Tell me if any of this landed close to something you've lived. We come here for stories, but I think mostly we come here to be less alone in the ones we're already inside. Subscribe if you want more. We'll be here.